What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to put this in the top of the show. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com to get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, we're coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy old stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do, reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from Los Angeles, California, Avery McKinney!
Oh, pleasure, Brennan. Happy to be here.
What's up, man?
Thrilled, man. I got to get it out of the way. What's your drug of choice? I used to work in a rehab for 5.5 years.
Did you?
Yeah, oh yeah. And there was never a dull moment. So I have a lot of empathy and a warm spot in my heart for people in the program because of how fucking insane and also wonderful just people in the program and in recovery are. Just the breadth of humanity you will see and just what people are struggling with and just shit that people deal with on a daily basis where I'm like, how did you have a fifth of whiskey with breakfast every day?
Yeah, so
and have a successful real estate business. What the like? I'm unsuccessful and I don't do anything most days.
Yeah, right. Mine was vodka towards the end. It's always been alcohol, though. So, like, I've talked about this before, but
I'm sure you have, so I don't want to bore the audience. I'm sure you've told it a million times.
I did coke a lot, especially when I came into a little bit of money. I spent a lot of it on cocaine. I've tried heroin a couple times, and then I've also done crack once in my life. But alcohol was always my, like, go-to DOC.
Yeah, it was the bottom bitch, yeah.
Yeah, because that was the thing was like even with all the drugs that I had tried, even when I did cocaine for like a while, it was still like one of those things where when I ran out of money, I was like, okay, I guess I'm just not doing that anymore. But with booze, it was like, oh no, we'll beg, borrow, and steal. We'll do whatever we have to do to get alcohol.
And it's so cheap, dude. It's so cheap. I remember,
especially
so when you're young, dude. I remember being in college. And I just turned 21. And when you just turned 21, you might know. You don't know anything about actually drinking, but you might know some. You don't know shit about buying it if you don't have a fake. So I remember we were going to this pregame at my friend's place, and we were at Rite Aid, and I was like, dude, I'll just get a fifth of Rite Aid vodka. It's like $5, dude. This shit's awesome. And I was like, it'll be fine. I'll just throw it in the freezer, put it in there, took it out like 3 hours later, and that shit was like cough syrup. It was like
syrup.
It was thick as it was coming out, and I drank it. And I was like, "Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
It's good. It's good." Yeah, my whole thing was, before we go too far, plug everything up front. Let everybody know where they can find you. You are a comedian out in LA, so tell everybody, where your shows are at, what's going on. This will come out in about 2 weeks.
Cool. Yeah, so I am a comic out in LA. You can follow me on Instagram at Avery Comedy, Avery Comedy. I host and produce a podcast called Invade the Decade, and I'm also the producer for The Film Vault, which is a film podcast that is a ton of fun to do. Also, if you're in the LA scene, also host a weekly open mic on Mondays at the Crow called Slice Mic. A lot of fun, very supportive. So whether you're experienced or brand new, always a good time.
Yeah, and that was what kind of how I ran into you on a digital means was because you had Katrina Davis, friend of the show and very hilarious comic on Invade the Decade.
Yeah.
And then obviously I knew you from the After Disaster and then later on the Film Vault. And then once they were talking about, I remember Brian brought it up or somebody brought it up that you were a comic. And I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, and then later on, Katrina was
I'm
on
so
the
unfunny
show.
on the
and-
show that you were like, there's no fucking
No,
way.
it's out of all the people that they auditioned and like brought in to do the producer thing, because it was like a running bit for a while about getting a new producer once Logan
Yeah.
left. I was just like, I just honestly didn't put two and two together that someone who moved to LA to do comedy would be like, oh, I'll spend time producing the show. But I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. And so then I was like, and then like I said, once I saw Katrina on Invade the Decade, I was like, oh, I got to get this guy on my podcast.
Yeah, and I saw that you actually had the homie Mike Rowland on yours. I
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
love that guy. Yeah, he might have been there for my first open mic because I'm from LA. I started in LA.
Okay.
So I think he got his start like literally at his college open mic.
Yeah,
I saw
we
him
talked
down,
about it,
I saw
yeah.
him down at the Ha Ha. Like I think probably 2 years after he had started, maybe a year.
I completely forgot, but we did talk about that, how he went out to LA. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had been buddies, like right at the start, and we were such just little drinking pieces of shit, and we got real into I don't know if I'm airing his dirty laundry. I think he'd own up to this. We got really into Patrice O'Neal's old podcast, Black Phillip. Do you ever listen to that?
No, I haven't heard of it.
The
That
most
sounds awesome.
So Patrice O'Neal, one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah,
just
I love-
ridiculous shit about picking up women and just saying the most like outrageous shit that I would never say today. But it was like when you're 22, you have no game, you have no
Yeah.
idea what you're doing. So I literally we would literally go up to women and be like, you know what your problem is, and then just tell them, and then be shocked when women were interested and like, oh, that's very interesting. I was like, this is crazy that this works.
This works, yeah.
So we were just drinking pieces of shit in the LA comedy scene. But yeah, I was thrilled to see that you had him on and that you knew him. I love that guy, dude.
Yeah, he just booked a TV show now. He's doing it, man. Animal Control. Yeah.
I was messaging him on Instagram last week, and yeah, could not be prouder, more happy for that guy. Such a good dude.
I like to think that the show is very much a springboard, because Katrina did it, and then she got the Comedy Central thing, and then Mike did it, and then he booked
I'm
that show.
hoping.
And I'm like,
Let's spring,
I
baby.
guess I guess it's the podcast. I mean, I don't know, but
You're the
I
good luck
wanted to-
Chuck of comedy.
There we go. Yeah, everyone else gets married except me.
Yeah.
God, Dane Cook gets brought up all the time because he's the reason I started stand-up.
Hey, I'm a Dane Cook. Is apologist the right word? I love that man.
Yeah, me too. I mean, apologist, defender, whatever you want to call it. That's exactly who I am.
If you think Harmful if Swallowed is a bad special, you're an asshole and a liar.
Yeah, if harmful,
You're a liar.
Yeah, exactly. You're just a liar. And I hope they bury your body and they make a tree, and then they use that tree to print the fucking Bible on it.
Big fan of Dane. Love Dane to pieces.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. But I wanted to talk to you about just to kind of get the listeners, because this is more of a Southeast kind of thing. For some reason, I got a ton of listeners in Virginia, even though I've never been.
Love it.
So you're out in LA, and you said you grew up in LA. How did you get your start in like stand-up? Have you always been a fan of comedy, or how did that end up working out?
Yeah, so I was always a fan of comedy. Always was interested in it. I grew up listening to it too. My dad was a huge fan of Bill Cosby. Continues to be. No. But I remember we would listen to that as a kid. So that was probably my first introduction to that this art form even existed. And then I just got into, I think, my first live show, which is wild, that this is literally my first live stand-up show, was seeing Dane Cook in one of the front rows at Staples Center. It was my friend's birthday.
Damn.
I think we were 16. And I was like, holy fuck, this is like the funniest thing I've seen
What
in my
tour
life.
was that? Do you remember?
This must have been 2008, 2009. It was like
So this was
touring-
like Vicious Circle.
yeah, this was like height of his powers. This was probably
Yeah.
the last full arena tour that he did. So just sold out. It was like a rock concert. Craziest thing I'd
that's
ever
nuts.
seen. So he got me into stand up. I had listened to him a bit, but not really anything beyond Dane in high school, honestly. It was just kind of Dane, and then broadened my horizons with podcasts. Honestly, I kind of got into it through the After Disaster, finding out about Bill Burr, other comics. Bill Burr was a gateway drug and sort of went down the rabbit hole
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
in college. And then I remember distinctly, because we would have comics come to the college, and I remember just enjoying it and thinking how I want to do it. And I even went home and would write some bits, right, or whatever. It's just dumb
Yeah.
nonsense. No plan to do anything with it. No idea what it's even for, but it's like, you have to, I just had to write it. I just had to do it.
Just had to get it out.
I just had to get it out. And then finally, I remember this. I will never forget. I was in my shitty apartment junior year of college, and I was listening to Donald Glover on Nerdist with Chris Hardwick, and them talking about stand-up. It was too physically painful for me to continue listening without me trying stand-up. Like, I had to shut it off. I had to shut it off because I was like, I am living a lie. I would imagine it feels somewhat like a gay person coming out, where I was like, I'm living a lie. I can't keep doing it. I have to try this.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's something I feel, because I started comedy in 2009 when I was 22. I started doing 21 and then into my early 20s. But then I stopped, and like I would like take 3 months off or 6 months off and all this kind of shit. But it's so interesting that you say that, because that's exactly to this day is how I feel about it. Where when I'm not doing it, or if I don't feel like I'm being, for lack of a better term, like true to myself, I will physically get sick. I'm like, I've only been on stage like 4 times this week. Like, I need to do more stage time.
It hurts.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's painful to be like, I don't care how many podcasts I recorded or how much I've been writing or how much I'm working on the one-man show. Like, I have to get on stage.
You have to do, And what's wild, so I started when I was, I think, 22 as well. I started in 2014.
Okay.
And I think it was 6 years in, I actually quit. I had just gone up at the Comedy Store, and I went in between Jamie Kennedy, Christina Pazitsky, and did as well as they did, and felt fucking nothing as I got off stage. Felt nothing. And all I was thinking about while I was on stage was all my friends right now are at my friend's apartment, drinking martinis, watching James Bond. I don't want to fucking be here. So,
are you serious? You really felt that way?
Yeah. So I quit comedy, was like, I'm going to try screenwriting, because that had been something I was dabbling with. I'm going to try screenwriting. So I did the whole thing, bought all the fucking books. I think I even planned to write one with Mike Rowland, actually. We were kicking something around. We were such assholes. He was in my apartment one time. We're just smoking weed, and he was like, I've got this book, dude. It's like, it was written by, I think, another comic. It's literally how to write movies and make millions. It was like the dumbest. We're like, dude, we'll just do that. You like write with people, like easy. You do that, we'll become the new like fucking Rogan and Jonah Hill. We'll just break in that way and just do stand up all the time, dude. Stupid. Just absolute morons. So I started writing, did the whole thing of like, get your original pilot, do your spec script, write a feature, this, that. And I got all the way through the first draft, and then I just could not bring myself to look at the second draft. It was like pulling teeth. You could have held a gun to my head and I wouldn't do it. So
what were you doing at this time for income and everything?
I was working at the rehab.
Okay.
So I was working at the rehab, doing that literally at my workstation. Like, while in downtime, I had what I think was Trelby, the free version of whatever that the main screenwriting tool is. Here's how broke I was. I don't even remember what that's called, because I use the shitty open source free version. Trelby. It's got like a purple fedora as the logo. It could not be douchier. You're like, why am I'm using a program daily that has a purple fedora as a logo? That should be a sign of crisis in and of itself. So I just realized, like, I don't think screenwriting is for me, because the whole thing is rewriting. That's what I kept hearing from writers. So if I don't like that, I'm not a screenwriter.
To be honest with you, that's been the most frustrating thing about the one-man show that I'm doing. I thought, I'll just put it together, because a lot of the stuff I talk about on stage is kind of dark, and I was like, well, and a lot of comics are like, dude, this isn't a stand-up special, this is a one-man show, because I'll tell stories to people and they're like, that's insane, but it's not funny, it's just nuts. Well, you worked at a rehab, you've heard the stories, and so I was like, okay, I'll do it as a one-man show. And then I got a buddy of mine on who's also a comic, but he's done a lot of, like, he studied theater in Paris, and he's like classically trained. So he's directed some stuff before for the stage. So he came on to direct. And every time I send him a script, he's like, this is good, but this is how we're going to rewrite it. And I love him to death, but it got to a point where as a comic, I'm like, well, no, we do the rewriting on stage. Like, that's like...
That's how I know. They tell me where the laughs are. I can get it this far, and then they bring it the rest of the way with me.
And it's not like I'm like, oh, fuck this, but it's just one of those things where it's like you said, pulling teeth. Like, every time I send him a script, he's like, okay, now we're going to tweak this and move that. And I'm like, It's done, man. Like, come
I know.
on.
And that's what writers live for. So I realized I didn't have that. So I was just kind of having this moment of crisis where I was like, what do I do? Because my friends would talk about stand-up. I didn't give a fuck at all. I didn't care.
You still didn't care at this point.
I didn't feel anything. Didn't feel anything. And I had my second coming to Jesus moment where I'm sitting down with friends. They're watching comedians in cars getting coffee. And it's one of those things where the only way I've heard it described that I fully relate to, it was in Ken Burns baseball. There's a league in New York of guys who were in the minors forever and could not make it through to the majors. And they play like every Sunday. They're very competitive. And they interviewed the guys and they were like, so do you watch baseball? And they go, no, it's too painful. They don't watch Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
And that's how I related to it, because I didn't want to know shit about stand-up. I didn't want to know about it. Like, didn't have any desire to do it. I was like, fuck this. I'm done. Like an abusive relationship, I don't want it. So I see my roommates are watching comedians in cars getting coffee, and Dana Carvey's the guest.
How many years has it been since you quit comedy?
It was almost a year to the day.
Okay.
Almost a year exactly. And they're sitting in some coffee shop and they just start describing what a comic is and who that person is and what it means to be a comic. And I can't remember what they said, but I just remember sitting there going, fuck, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, you don't get to choose. It's like,
Well,
sorry, dude, you're a comic.
That's the kind of stuff that gets me fired up. Because even though moving to New York and not having any sort of reputation or anything here, because I've only been here for like a year and a half, I will, like today, I was at the studio getting ready to record with one of the guests, and I was talking to the engineer. And it's so funny when people from the outside talk to you as a comic, because you could be fucking Jerry Seinfeld for all they know. Like, they talk to you like as a comic. And I'm answering some of his questions. Suki, our producer at the studio, love him to death. And I'm answering some of his questions. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is my whole life. Like, is this? Like,
you're a comic.
Yeah, because we're talking about, like, he's like, oh, do you change, like, your set based on the audience? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, you just do it on the fly in your head? And I was like, yeah, like, how else would you do it?
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, that's crazy. And I'm like, no, that's work. Like, that's the job. Like, what are you talking about?
Form. It's like a surgeon using a different tool. It's like, yeah, sometimes you need a scalpel, sometimes you need the thing to pry open the chest. It's
just you have to figure it out while you're in there.
Yeah, what's the cheat code? How do I crack this?
So it's so interesting that you say that you're listening to that interview and you're like, oh fuck, yeah, that's me.
And then I was back in, and then I haven't looked back since.
Did you find a passion for it, or was it like tough sledding the first time?
So what I realized, it was just I was so just burnt out.
Yeah.
And I had redlined for so long without taking a break or stopping, which I think a lot of comics do, that I just had built up this resentment. I was just numb to it. So the problem wasn't that I was doing stand-up. The problem was I was not taking a break ever.
Yeah, that's
I
a
wouldn't
big
recharge.
Thing. Well, and especially in LA, I'm sure it's similar to New York, where there's so much ability to get stage time that even if it's open mics, like you could literally go 7 days a week, boom, 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 boom. And then if people don't take, and that's something I've learned just over the course of, doing it on and off for the last, 12 years, is that I will at least once a month take a day where I'm like absolutely nothing. And normally it's like once every 2 weeks where I'm like absolutely nothing to do with comedy today. Yeah. And I'll just take the day because I work at night in the service industry, and I only work a few days a week because that was the thing. When I got hired, I was like, this is what I'm available for. Every other time, it's comedy. And so they're like, hey, can you pick up? I go, nope. You already know if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I'm doing comedy stuff, and that's that. But there are times where it'll be like a Thursday, and I've done a bunch of shit, and over the course of the week, and then I had been working all weekend, so then I'll just be like, nope. Just taking today off. And we have to do that for our own mental stability. And
not just that, you have to live a life.
Yep.
You have to live a life.
Especially because I'm a storyteller, so I can't, what am I going to do? Tell stories about how I bombed on stage? Like, the audience isn't going to understand that.
Yeah, and even if you're not a storyteller, it's like you have to have something you're drawing on from your life, or you become that derivative comic where it's just, I was on an airplane. I was at a show. I was in the Uber. I was in the hotel. And while that stuff is fun, it's tell me about your girlfriend. You don't have one. Tell me about your hobbies. You don't have them. Tell me about the last vacation you went on. You don't have one. Tell me about some restaurant where they fucked up you don't go out to a restaurant. So you don't have anything to talk about except for shit you mined before you did comedy. And at some point that mind runs out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have to keep living a life. And if you're not feeding that, then there's no output.
It's so interesting you say that too, because I'm sure this happens with you. There are times where I'll be on stage just like working on stuff for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, and then I'll go. We have a New Joke Wednesday at a mic here in the city, and it's becoming like a thing where if you go there, you better have fucking stuff you've never said on stage before. Like we don't play around. And so I'll go there and I'll be like, all right, New Joke Wednesday, and I'll pull my notebook out and I'll be like, oh, I don't have anything new to talk about because I've just been working and doing mics for the last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I'm like, shit, I don't. And then you have to scramble to like write stuff down. And then I go up and do it. And I'm like, oh, none of this is hitting because none of it makes any sense. Like I wrote it on the fly because,
and I don't give
exactly.
a shit.
Yeah. So I'm glad you found the passion for it again. It only took you a year. I took 3 years off when I relapsed.
Oh man.
And I was just like, yeah, because I used to run the light and do like stupid shit on stage. And so when I started drinking again, I was like, I am not showing up anywhere drunk to do comedy. Like I cannot do that again.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't get sober for like years. So it took a little while to get back. What was it like for you starting in LA? Was that more difficult? Or, I mean, it's all you know, so I guess you can't really compare it, but...
Yeah, it's kind of all I know. And what was interesting is I started in the Valley, which is kind of different than starting over the hill. So I remember I was in walking distance from the Ha Ha, which is a small club here in the Valley. And I went the first time. Thank God I got laughs because that's what keeps you going, right?
Yep.
You just need a little something, and that's all I needed. And... it was one of those bucket mics where you just fucking wait your dick off. And everybody who's a regular gets up first, and it's 3 hours long, and you're just waiting. And I just went pretty much every day. Because at the time, I was living with 2 cats and an alcoholic. My apartment had no AC. It would literally be 97 degrees inside the apartment. And I'd be like, I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So I would go every day.
And this is when you first started?
When I first started. And I remember... that finally I started to break through with the regulars because they thought it was funny, and I broke through because I was just making fun of this older comic who would do these weird one-liners. He had this very particular like old school style, and I just went up and I was like, all right, my character is if anybody listens, it was Greg Buckman who was wow I was doing this and wow, and I just went, and it's all clean. And he would just be very clean and very like, wow, so I went to the market and wow, I dropped off my eggs and what are you going to do with blah, blah, blah. So I just went, this is my new character, offensive Greg Buckman. And I just went up there and I just did in his style of like, wow, you ever notice that? And was just doing pedophile jokes and just the most racist shit I could think under the guise of the character. And I remember one of the established comics was like, he was Australian, Lowy, who's amazing, Craig Lowe. It was like, who the fuck is that guy? That was crazy. And just immediately got respect because he was like, barely knew this guy and had the balls to just go up and try this character. And he thought that was fucking hilarious. That I was just roasting his friend. And then I was in. So then
you were in.
So then I was in. They would let me host some of the shows they were producing. When I would show up for the mic, they would get me up at a good spot. So then I'd be able to go around and do other mics without wasting my whole night at one place. So
yeah,
it was almost my first experience in breaking into a club and sort of cutting my teeth, where it's just like I took my beatings, I would bomb, and I just hung in there and just kept writing and kept just hitting it. And that was instrumental for me, of just having that experience of having to tough it out and then feeling like you broke through.
How did you end up at that show at the store? Was it just you said it was 6 years in, so were you just like working your ass off and then you got a spot, or?
Yeah, so it was, my buddy had been helping out running sound for one of the independent producers who ran shows at the store. And then finally she was kind of expanding. It was getting more popular. She needed extra help. So then I would fill in on some of the bigger shows that had sold out or whatever.
Yeah.
So I would help with like tickets, wristbands, whatever, in exchange for stage time. I'm like, fucking great. So then I only did that for like a couple. It was like probably 4 or 5 months of doing that. But what is such a bummer is I was so burnt out by that period that I had a really hard time enjoying it and seizing that opportunity, because I just redlined so hard with the rest of it that by the time I had gotten that thing I was looking for, I was like, fuck this. And my fuck this wasn't even so much. You don't feel that towards comedy. You feel it towards you because you're not letting yourself take a fucking break.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up, because I've had the great fortune of being able to perform at like the Stand and the Cellar and stuff. But it's all, again, it's on these produced shows, because you meet people and you get to talking with people, and then all of a sudden, if you're cool, or if they're not complete assholes, they're like, oh, I run a show. Do you want to jump on? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. And then next thing you know, it's like, yeah, meet me at the Cellar at like 10 o'clock on a Monday, and you're like, wait, the Cellar? And you're like, what? And then you go and do it, and it's just one of those things where I've been lucky enough, because I did, and I think you experienced the same thing, where I stopped doing comedy. And so that passion like has been amplified because it was something that I did, and then I had it taken away, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And so
I had rediscovered it just before I quit summer 2018, got back into it summer 2019, did it for 6 months, then the fucking pandemic.
COVID hit, yeah. Yeah, because when I came back into it, I was like, oh, this is, because that was after alcohol poisoning, and I almost died, and I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. There is no plan B. This is the plan. And so I've been fortunate enough to have that experience before I got to New York. So now almost anything that happens in New York, I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm in New York and we're doing it. Like, I don't give a shit. But there are times, and I'm sure you've experienced this, where it's like, I don't know, because you grew up in that area, so it's not like you're not like thinking about like, maybe I made a mistake, maybe I should go back home.
Dude, it helps. I can't fail out of this town.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing
nice.
There are some times where I'm like, maybe I should go back to Florida.
Yeah.
But it's awesome to just be around it, because like you said, you go up to do a show and it's Jamie Kennedy and then Christina P, and you're like just on. And I had that too, where I did the show at the Cellar, and I did this bit, and then as I'm coming off, Sean Patton's coming up, who I really love, and then he's riffing on the bit that I closed with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude.
Or bigger comedians are talking to you like you're somebody, and you're going, what the fuck is happening?
After the show, you go to sit down, and then all of a sudden David Tell walks in because he's up next, and he's like, hey, what's up, guys? And you're like, you're fucking David Tell, man. Yeah. What's up?
You don't have to talk to me at all.
You don't do that because that would be uncouth, but in my head, I'm like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you somewhat about, you did send me some stories, which I appreciate, but you had mentioned earlier when you were in college and you guys would just kind of party. When did you first start drinking? Was that in college or was that in high school?
So I was a late bloomer with that. I did not have a single drop of alcohol until second semester senior year of high school.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I feel like
I was the same way.
Which I feel like is late for most people. And I was one of those people who was like firmly against it. I was like, I don't need alcohol. All the people I know who drink are fucking douchebags, and people who are dicks to me at school, and fuck all them. And this is always how it happens. Then I got a girlfriend. Women are usually, I feel like at that age, more into partying than guys. And it's more fun if you're partying with women. And so it's like, oh yeah, this girl who's into me wants to drink and party. I'm going to do that.
I'm going to drink and party.
And then once you do it, you're like, this is the best thing in the world.
Yeah,
this is a rap video.
It's
like, this is incredible.
That was my experience, kind of, not the girlfriend part, but with the drinking. Like, I saw so many people where I was like, oh, that's what alcohol does to you? Like, I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And my, like, sisters would party because they were popular, and I was like, oh, like, I don't, like, you guys can be kind of dicks when you drink. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't a girlfriend, but my twin sister had a party, and like her boyfriend came over and like a few of her friends, and I happened to be home, and they were like, just try it. So it was 99 bananas, and I did a shot, and all of a sudden, because my anxiety I've had since I was like a kid, like all of a sudden my anxiety and depression just went away, and I wasn't worried about anything, and everything
like, holy
felt
shit,
great.
This is magic.
And it's exactly how I describe it. I'm like, what is this magical elixir? Like, give me more.
Like, this is a potion.
Yeah, and I joke about it on stage now, talking about like if we were in Skyrim, my alchemy level was super low because I did not know how to drink. I was just like, "This is magic potion, let's chug it."
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the same way how I got into it because once I started drinking, I wasn't an alcoholic right off the bat, but I was like, "Oh, I enjoy doing this. This is a lot of fun."
Yeah, it takes time to throw that switch. I remember my first drink was Bacardi 151, and somebody put it into Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. I'm 95. Put it into some Coke, and I was like, this Coke tastes kind of weird. They're like, let's make you another drink because everybody was like excited that I was drinking for the first time because I was kind of in mixed company. And I was with the part of my friend group. Like because you know how in the friend group there's always like some people in the group are the ones that are cooler and also sometimes hang out with the coolest people. So it was like I was at one of those houses and parties. So they were like, "Oh shit!" Like Avery's drinking. So they're like, "Oh, we'll make you another one. Make you another one." Pour it into some lemonade. I'm like, this lemonade tastes weird. And then I went, "Oh, this is alcohol. This is what this tastes like.
This is what it does." Yeah.
But then we got going. It was a pool party, and I was like, "This is kind of all right. This is kind of fun." And then I wouldn't like seek it out, but if there was like a party, I'd go for it. So it was usually kind of through my girlfriend in high school because she was a theater kid. She was more connected. I think she might have been her class president for her senior year of high school. So she was like connected. So we would go to parties and shit. And I worked at a summer camp. So I knew people who were 21 who would just buy me shit. Yeah. And because I had a summer job, you would have that dumb money where I have no expenses. I live at home. So the like 500 a month, I would get 400 for working at a summer camp. You can just spend all of that on dumb bullshit.
Whatever you want.
Dude, I would show up. This was in 2009. I would show up to like her parties with a full handle of Patron that I spent like $90 on, and just be offering it to people, and they'd be like, "This is fucking crazy." This is like the height
coming
of
in there
Pitbull.
like the Monopoly guy.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, dude, I got a girlfriend in Patron. I'm actually the coolest person in America. No one's been cooler.
Did you stay in that same area when you graduated high school, or did you end up going away?
So I didn't, which I'm super grateful for because I feel like I got a lot of perspective. I actually went away to college in Atlanta. So totally polar opposite. So got my first taste of the South. And that's bananas because
you're friends with Mike Rowland and he did the exact opposite. He's from Atlanta and just went to LA.
Just totally swapped it. And such a blast. And I don't know if you know, do you know Doye Travis?
No.
Okay, he's another comic. He did JFL a couple of years ago, and I think he's out in New York, but he was like a grade below me, and also in his grade is another guy out here, Daniel Weingarten, who I think got Comedy Central at the same time Katrina did. So it's weird that like three people at my college, though it's probably 1,200 each grade, like are involved in stand-up. So in this weird little
Where
cluster.
did you go to college?
Emory University.
Okay. Yeah, I know Emory. So when you got to college, were you, because you were completely disconnected, you went to the other side of the country, were you going nuts there, or were you very like, because people either go down two paths, I've kind of realized doing the show for a few years, is that when they get to college, they want to focus on their studies and they think like, okay, I need to like make this work, or they go the other way, which is like, we're going to fucking have a great time. Because I did kind of, the weird thing was when I first got there and I was playing football, I was like hyper focused on school and like practice obviously and stuff. And then I would party every once in a while. But as soon as football was done, I was like, oh, I'm going to party all the time.
Yeah, I was one of those people where I had always done well in school. So I was like, I know how to study. I want to learn how to party. So I'm going to go out. So I wouldn't go crazy where I wasn't one of those people who would go out every day, but I would go out really as often as I could within reason. So like if I didn't have a test or anything like that the next day, I would get after it.
Yeah.
Then I knew people who started to rush fraternities and started getting that way, and I would just go for it because I was just it was like the first time in my life, because I also part of it too, I had braces my entire fucking career in high school. So I got them off right before college and had broken up with my girlfriend like at the beginning of like the first semester.
This
so it was
the high school girlfriend?
Yeah, it was heartbroken like the first half. And then second semester, friends are rushing and I'm getting after it. And I'm like, wait, there are girls at these parties and they want to dance with me. They're into what I'm putting out there.
They're picking up what you're putting down.
I was like, this is the best. This is so much fun. So yeah, I would definitely just get after it there and just drink. It's just stupid drinking. Just
so when
dumb
you met,
shit.
When you met Mike, were you guys were, this was back in LA?
Yeah.
So-
This was back in LA for sure.
What was that like when you were going out with comics and partying and stuff like that? Was it similar to what you guys were doing in college, or was it very much different in the fact that now you don't have like a lot going on as far as responsibilities?
Yeah, it was more like, because when I got back from college, it was like I had a job for the first time, and I had a new friend group with comics. But when you're that early on, I feel like it's hard. There's a lot of shitty people right at the start of comedy. Yeah. And the higher you go, I think the higher quality person you'll find. So now when I meet somebody, at my level, I'm like, generally this person's pretty cool. But when you're just starting out, there's so many people who need to quit, dude. There's so many fucking people who need to not do comedy.
All right.
Perfect. Yeah, like I was saying, so many people who need to just quit comedy. So I was having trouble with there we go. Which is finding people. So it was definitely more partying with comics, but also I felt lonelier, so I kind of hopped on more opportunities to go to these parties. And that was where a lot of the drinking was less fun too, because I was living with an alcoholic at the time. It was fun
you had
in
mentioned
college.
that earlier. Was that by choice or accident, or how did that happen?
It was one of my best friends since I was like in second grade. But you know how everybody, like changes in college for better or worse. So he had
it's
always
weird
been
you say that, or just a sidebar. It's weird you say that, because when I first got to college, it was better because I was like, I'm not going to get bullied anymore. Like, I'm going to be a cool kid, and I actually experienced a fantastic life for the first 2 years. And then when I quit, when I stopped playing football because of injuries and stuff, and I left the team, it was much worse. It was way worse. It was for the way worser.
Yeah. So I was living with him, and in college, like, he just got jacked out of his mind, which he had never been. So he started to get all this attention from women. He had only dated one girl his entire high school career.
Yeah.
So he got all this attention from women, got heavy into partying. He used to never drink. So then he just, I mean, you know it, dude. If you got the gene, if you got the gene and you throw the switch, you're fucked.
Yeah, I tell people all
You're
the time.
fucked.
I can pinpoint exactly the summer when I became an alcoholic. And I talk about it constantly, because it's one of those things where I was like, oh, everyone in my family drinks. Like, we're just a heavy drinking family. But everyone could quit if they had something else. Like, when my twin sister got pregnant, she quit. When my older sister had stuff coming up for work, she quit. And like, for me, I remember this summer, dude, I was drinking every single day, and eventually nothing was more important than drinking. And I was like, oh, fuck, I went too far. And you can't come back. Once you go, you can't come back.
Yeah, once you throw that switch. And that's honestly one of the best things I learned from working at a rehab. Was one of the number one indicators is when you are having a hard day, are you using alcohol or substances to regulate your mood? And 100% of the time, if I'm going through a breakup, if I lost a job, if I had a hard day, the last thing in the world I have any desire to do is drink or smoke weed. Last thing in the world.
Yeah, I was
zero desire. So ever since I realized that, I'm like, oh, great, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Now, do I do dumb shit when I drink? For sure. But that was such a relief to me, where I was like, oh, I get it. And now, having worked so long in it, now I can kind of spot it in other people, where you'll be at a bar and go, oh, that fucking guy, he's got the devil in him. He's got it.
And it's weird because, like we were talking about earlier, I tell people how much I drank. Like, me and Carano were talking about it on the episode he did on this podcast.
Yeah.
Where we were talking about trunk vodka, because you remember that came up on the AD like many years ago. And I remember after I heard that, I was like, oh shit, like I do the same thing. Like, I keep vodka in my trunk. And then after I heard him tell that story, I started putting it in a water bottle instead of keeping it in the vodka bottle. But it was just so weird that it's like, because, obviously Mike's in the program and he's, openly talked about all that kind of stuff. So it was just so weird to hear another alcoholic be like, yeah, that's normal. And then when I talk to normal people, they're like, how did you wake up at 5? Because I worked at a brunch place. They're like, how did you wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go to work like that? I was like, oh, I had to do shots to drive. Like, I was so shaky. Like, how how did you go to work?
Yeah. How else would you manage it?
Yeah, I was like, how did you not do that before work?
So I was living with this dude. He was getting hammered every day. He was kind of looking for a job. He would be drunk by the time I got home from work.
Was he still jacked even though he was drinking every day?
That's all he would do. And he was being supported by his mom. And he was just, all he would do is lift and drink. That's all he would fucking do.
So he'd wake up, go to the gym, get it all out of his system, and then go home and start it all over again.
Yeah. And he'd have the genes, so he was never hungover.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys. So he'd be drunk by the time I got back, and it would always be like, we're going out to the bars. Let's go, let's go, let's go. A lot of my other friends were in grad school or hadn't moved back yet. So he was kind of my only lifeline to do stuff. And he knew girls. So I'd be like, I guess I'll go out with this guy. And he's still my buddy.
This maniac.
I don't realize how bad it is yet because he's one of my best friends. But it would just get to the point, dude, where he would be the guy of like, you have to drink at this bar. You have to. He'd be the guy getting into fights with people, like at the fucking bar, just at a urinal. He'd be squaring up on dudes, and I would have to break up fights every single place we went. And it got to the point where anytime I would bring a girl back, whether I was trying to date her, whether she was a friend, 100% of the time, if I would leave to like go get another drink, go to the bathroom, take a phone call, he would immediately start hitting on this person and trying to fuck them immediately.
That sucks.
And it just got to the point where I was like, dude, because I had heard Loveline where somebody had a similar thing. I think Psycho Mike was talking about it, and he said the people I valued the most once I got sober were the ones who stopped participating in it.
Yeah.
So I just told him, I was like, dude, I'm moving out. I cannot participate in this. I cannot watch you do this anymore. And I'm out. And he just texted me back, okay. And I've not talked to him in like 8 years.
Oh, still to this day?
Never reached out to me. He's still actively doing his thing, still drinking, still cheating on his long-term girlfriend. Bad stuff. Because this whole time he had a girlfriend too while he was doing this.
Oh my God.
That was part of our friend group.
And that's insane to me only because, I mean, for multiple reasons, but it blows my mind when stuff like that happens because obviously from working in the rehab, you understand it too. It's like I can completely empathize because I've been in that like super dark, scary place. But there's also a part of me that's like, all right, like let's fucking go. Like this is enough now. Because, and I mean,
but that's how you got out.
Yeah, and we say it all the time. It takes what it takes. And for me, I literally was on the cusp of death before I was like, all right, maybe I've gone too far. So I totally understand that.
And that's got to be why the enablers are such a problem, is because they're stopping you from getting where you would go without them.
It wasn't until, and I haven't even talked about this before on the show, but I love that you say that because it wasn't until my ex-fiance left and I was left to my own devices because I left home at 17. So like I didn't have like, you know, I had family helping me out like in college here and there and stuff, but I didn't have like a check coming every month to make sure rent was covered. In fact, I got kicked out of a place. I was living with a buddy. Shout out to Joe A. I got kicked out of he kicked me out because I kept getting drunk and missing work and then I wasn't able to pay rent. And thank God he did that because that's what put me down the path to get my own place. And then I literally had no one to answer to. And that's when I got so drunk that I almost died. And that's actually what woke me up where I was like, oh, fuck, man.
So speaking of drinking with comics, should we get into some of these stories?
Let's do it.
All right. Do we have time for all three? You want me to cut one of them?
Yeah,
what do you think?
No, we've got plenty of time. I want to talk about how you forgot English.
Yes. So this is the time I got so high I forgot English. So I was drinking since high school, but end of high school, as we discuss, and that was going great. I was having a blast, good time, as good as it can, you know, just learning the ropes, getting blackout drunk, drinking literally every kind of liquor you could possibly have. But I was like, it's fun. You're talking to chicks and you're dancing. Good times.
Yeah.
You're just having fun, partying, whatever. But I didn't start smoking weed until I joined an a cappella group junior year. And all the people, and it was like, a lot of them were just very white bread. I joined
junior year of college.
Junior year of college, and I joined the one that was like explicitly like about diversity. So everybody else was white. This group, it was just everybody. It would be black people, Mexican people, Native American people, Indian people, Asian people. So it was all the coolest motherfuckers. Nobody was like, let's sing some some Michael Bublé. It was like, just let's get some Boys to Men. And
Yeah.
everybody, like we were listening to The Weeknd when his EP first came out. So
Oh,
it was
shit.
like,
So you were-
like tuned in. So these are all like the coolest people I'd ever hung out with. So these people, they loved smoking, and I had never been into it. And like the coolest dude in it, he was like on the side. He was a professional chef. He was this like Asian dude, cool haircut, had the hottest girlfriend, and he would like one of those dudes who would barely talk, but when he would, it'd be the coolest shit. It just
when he
just
spoke,
wisdom.
everyone listened. Yeah.
So then he would want to hang out with me, and I'm like, oh shit, like this dude wants to hang out with me, fucking awesome. So we started smoking, and we would get high off our dicks and just watch the original Twilight Zone. And he would like cook up this gourmet food, we'd eat it, and just watch the Twilight Zone. I was like, this is the best. This is what weed is. This is
life.
dope. And
Yeah.
then other people would come over and just put on music and bands I'd never heard of, because like I grew up just on K-Rock.
Yeah.
I didn't even listen to rap until college. So they would just put on R&B, rap, all this shit. And it would just blow my mind of like, I didn't even know this stuff existed, of like turn me on to like Frank Ocean when he just just released stuff. I'm like, this is fucking incredible. So that got me in the door. So after that, I was like, this is fun. And one of my best buddies had joined a frat, and he became a big stoner sophomore year. So then once he heard I was into it, he was like, bro, this is what
Let's
I've been
do it.
doing. This is what I've been doing. I've been trying to get you into this. So I was like, okay. So we go to their off-campus house, and one of the fraternity brothers had gotten this thing called a hurricane bong. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these. I don't know if this is a thing or this is just what he called it, but
No, I've heard of this.
so it's for those who are the uninitiated and the non-problematic
But we
substance
are
users.
initiated.
You would smoke it, and it had this little, it almost looked like one of those old school tops that you put the string around, you pull it. It's almost shaped like almost like a pear if you put it upside down, and the smoke would swirl through there with some ice, and it would cool it down, and you just get the biggest rips of all time, right? So it was just me, and we were pre-gaming before the house party that was going to happen in like whatever 3 hours, who knows. I came over at like,
so you're getting started early.
yeah, I came over at 8. The party's going to start at fucking midnight, right?
Yeah.
So this guy's passing around this hurricane bong, and just Chappelle shows on. And I'm like, all right, this is a great fucking hang. So we're just passing this thing around. And like, I'd never had any issues with weed. I was like, this is only good times, bro. This is just good times. We're passing it around. And I'm like, all right, we're on that. Or it's going up the roller coaster. Like, we're going up, we're going up, we're going up. I'm like, this is the best. This shit's hitting so smooth. I look so cool smoking this fucking thing. And Chappelle shows on, and then my friend goes to pass me the bong, and my friend's like, it's like, what? He's like, I take the bong, I smoke, and I was like, that was fucking weird. Pass it to the next person, and then I'm like, all right, that was weird. I'm just gonna, I think I'm getting too high, my heart's racing. I'm just gonna focus on Chappelle's show. I start watching it, and Chappelle's like, I don't know, eh? I don't know. Like, what's
So
going
you're
on?
just, oh my God, I'd be so panicked.
Speaking in gibberish, right? Speaking in gibberish. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is going on? So now I'm starting to freak out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, what in the fuck is happening? And now I'm like, okay, maybe the TV's fucked up. I start looking around the room and listening to other people's conversations, and I cannot understand shit. Everybody sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher.
Wah, wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah.
And I was like, what the fuck am I having a break from reality? What is happening right now? So I just get up and I just go, all right, I have to go now. Like, and I just like walk out, just shake my friend's hand like a robot and just walk out. Cause I lived there was like a secondary campus, and I lived close enough where it was like a 20-minute walk to get back to my campus. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk. And this was before Uber. And I'm not going to call a cab because cabs back then were $1,000 fucking dollars. I'm a college kid. I literally was
and
making,
they made you wait like 2 hours. They're like, yeah, we'll send someone eventually.
Yeah, I had a part-time job, I think making literally like $50 a month. So I'm like, I'm not going to blow this all, my monthly budget on a cab to fuck that. I'm also too high. I don't want to deal with that. I want to just fucking walk. So I'm like, it's going to be fine. Like, it's not a big deal. Let me just put on a podcast and just chill out. So I was paying for it when Loveline used to be on a podcast. So I was like, I'll throw that in. I was mainlining that show. I was like, I'll throw that in. I put that in. And they're like, no. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? I'm having trouble putting thoughts together. I'm walking directly up this hill and it's pitch black. There's one street light at the top and I cannot remember what is on the other end of this hill.
Oh my God.
I just know it's important that I get over there. So I'm walking up this hill. It feels like my legs are made of cement and I'm just like, I can barely understand my own thoughts. I just have it in the podcast still because at least it's noise. I don't want silence. Just give me noise. Give me something. Maybe it'll start to make sense. I go up and I'm walking and I'm getting so fucking scared because the top of this hill is getting closer and closer and I cannot tell you what's on the other side. I have no idea, but it's like a sea turtle heading to the ocean. I'm like, I know I gotta do it. I don't know why, but I have to get up there. So I'm putting one step in front of the other. I finally crest this hill and then I see the off-campus location. And I see like the dorms and the dining hall and I'm like, oh, thank fuck. And I managed to cross the street, get all the way back to my dorm, and I just lie down in my bed. Finally, I don't even brush my teeth, nothing. Lay down in my clothes. I lie down in my bed, and I swear to God, it feels like I am laying in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Like the sky is opened up above me. It feels like my walls are 40 feet tall. And I can barely hold together who I am, where I am, who I am, and I'm literally just listing things that I can remember. Any real tangible thing I can think of. I'm like, Cool Ranch Doritos. My friend is Justin. Pokemon. And literally do that until my body falls asleep, and then I wake up, my brain works again, and I'm like, thank fuck. I don't know what.
Oh my God, dude!
I don't know what that was. It's never happened again. I've never had anything close to that. I've had like the thing of like, am I having a heart attack? That sort of thing. I've never had anything close to that again. So I have no idea what happened. But dude, I swear to God, I could not speak or understand English. Like my brain just couldn't. I had no language.
Nuts.
I had no language.
I've heard like the heart attack thing is real. Like we had Steven Rogers on the show and he talked about when he smoked some weed, or I think he did edibles, and he thought he was having a heart attack. So like they called an ambulance, and he was like, "Oh, I'm embarrassed now." But I've heard tale of like crazy things happening, but to just completely blank out on who you are in the English language is kind of nutty.
It was crazy, dude. So that was the day I retired from bongs. I'm like, I'm doing completely joints and vapes only. I don't do edibles. I'm like, I'm a one hit at a time guy so that I'm in control of the hot air balloon. We're going up or we're going down. I'm not getting in the rocket anymore. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Speaking of one hit at a time, you had mentioned to me on the list about getting into a fight.
Yes. So this actually ties back into getting drunk with comics and also my alcoholic roommate that I talked about. So this was just, I was just hanging out with just a friend group you shouldn't be. But it's one of those times in your life when it's all you have. And you just go with it. And there's a party, so I'm going to go and fuck it. So one of my friends in quotes, who is a comic, one of her best friends was a burlesque dancer. And I had met her at a show. And she was, dude, just stunner. So cute. And we had gotten to talking a little bit. So we were texting, and it was her apartment too. And it was these two best friends. They both lived together, burlesque dancer and female comic. We'll call them blonde and brunette. So the brunette was like, oh, like, you have such good taste in me. Like, will you make the playlist for the party? Blah, blah. So I just spent all day making the playlist for this house party that they're having later. I'm like, dude, she's going to love this. I'm fucking in, dude. This is going to be awesome. Make this playlist and show up at this place. And I'm one of the first people to get there because I'm like, I got the music. I got to fucking bring
Yeah, you
this
gotta
shit,
be there
dude.
early,
I got to
man.
be there, dude. I got to be there for my girl, dude. So we get there and we're taking shots, put on the music, and it's a pregame, so there's not many people there. So we're playing Truth or Dare, and my friend goes, hey, why don't you, burlesque dancer, why don't you kiss Avery? So I dare you to kiss Avery. So we just start making out, and this chick is fully into it. And I'm like, this is the hottest girl I've ever kissed in my life. I'm like, this is the best. This is why I made the playlist, Brennan.
This is why we made the playlist.
This is the best. So then I'm just like, I just played off cool. I'm like, yeah, so blah, whatever. We're drinking. My other two buddies, one of which is my roommate, the alcoholic, they like show up. They like called an Uber. They showed up. I'm like, I'm gonna go down, let my friends in, blah, blah. So they come up and I'm telling my friend, I'm like, dude, that girl that I was telling you about, the burlesque dancer, like I totally just fucking made out with her, dude. This is the best. I'm gonna like, and then that's your whole night.
Yeah, that's it. That's
if
your
you're at
night
a
is
party
accounted
and you've
for.
made out with a girl, you're like, this is my entire existence is about making that happen again. This is all that matters.
Yeah.
A meteor could hit the earth and I would just be trying to kiss this girl again. So we're having a good time drinking. I'm trying to play it cool where I'm like, I don't want to crowd her. Because women like that too. It's just dudes on them all the time, right? So everybody's drinking, just pounding drinks. I think at some point I throw up in their marble sink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I was a soldier too. Somebody was in there. I just waited in the hallway for like 10 minutes, went in, threw up, got rid of it. Was like, all right, crisis
We're back.
averted. Let's get back into the game. So the boyfriend of my friend who I also knew, both of them were comics. I knew his brother was kind of seeing this chick. But this dude was fucking lame. He was just like, I was like, this dude's a fucking normie. He's younger. Fuck this
Fucking
dude.
nerd.
Dude.
Get outta
I
here,
was like,
man.
bro, she made out with me tonight. Like,
We're
fuck
the
you,
artists.
bro.
This is what we do.
I was like, dude, she wants me. I'm wearing this awesome hat I found on Venice Beach.
let's not forget
that's
the
hot.
playlist.
Yeah, I've got the playlist, dude. She's dancing to my music. I'm Mr. Steal Your Girl. Get the fuck out of here. So I'm like, I'll play it cool, whatever, not a big deal. And at some point, he's like,
So he's at the party.
he's at the party.
Did
and
he
he's-
show up later or was he there when you guys were making out?
He showed up later.
Okay.
So he shows up later and I'm like, dude, if the girlfriend of this guy's boyfriend, like if the girlfriend's having me do this, I'm like, there's nothing here. She wouldn't hurt
Yeah.
her boyfriend's brother. Like this is nothing. This is kid shit. So at some point he like pulls her in to like talk in her bedroom. He's like, hey, can we just talk? Cause like, I don't know what's going on and blah, blah. And I'm like, fucking lame, dude. And so I'm like, dude, fuck that shit, dude. Fuck that. So they're in there and me and my friends are just drinking. And then I just hear this dude just start yelling like, what the fuck, bro? What the fuck? You gotta get out of here, brunette. Get the fuck out of that room. Who the fuck's in there? And I'm like, what is going on? So I look to the hallway because they're all down the hallway. Bedrooms are down there. We're partying in the living room and the kitchen. And I just see these dudes just start, like, they're just screaming at each other, right? So I
Wait,
turned.
who are the dudes? What's happening?
So I turn to my friend and I'm like, my other friend who like is part of their friend group. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, that's, let's say Jose or whatever. They kind of have had a thing in the past. So I'm like, oh shit. So
she kind of had a thing with the brother and with this other guy.
this other dude, and had been making out with me at the party. So the minute I find this out, I'm like, my name is Paul, and this between y'all.
Yeah.
I'm
not touching this.
I don't know who made the playlist. I don't know who's at this party. Fuck this shit. So there's just this screaming at the door. He's like, "Get the fuck! You gotta get the fuck out of here!" What?
So Jose is screaming at the brother in the bedroom?
Screaming through the door, like, "You gotta get the fuck! I know you're there with the fucking dude." Da, 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 da. He opens the door. And his brother's getting in between him. He's like, you gotta calm down. You gotta calm the fuck down. And this dude just punches him square in the head. And he's got a ring on his finger. And this guy's an actor, good looking dude, also doing stand up, splits his forehead open. and it just starts running blood. And these dudes just start throwing fists. Girls are screaming. The burlesque dancer's just like on the bed, crying her eyes out. The brother's just trying to make sure his little brother doesn't get his fucking ass kicked. So
it was the older brother that got cracked in the skull?
Gets cracked for his little brother, and it's just bleeding. So the non-burlesque dancer, my friend the blonde, is like, you gotta get the fuck out. I'm calling the cops right the fuck now. You gotta get the fuck out. So they separate them. Those dudes just run down the stairs. And now my friend who is dating the blonde, his face is just running with blood, dude. It's like split open.
Oh yeah, I have a story about it, but I cut my own face open in a fight one time. And if you cut your face, especially when you're drinking, it leaks blood.
Fucking bleeding. So now it's just running with blood, and we get everybody out of there, and we're like, we got to get this dude at the ER. We're all fucking hammered. My roommate is an alcoholic, is like, I'll drive us there. There's no time. So we're in emergency mode. We're like, fuck it. It's right around the corner.
He does this all the time.
He does this all the time. There's an ER, so we just go. He's running with blood in the back of his fucking Acura GTR, whatever it is.
Of course it's an Acura.
With the mufflers. Cannot drive at all. He's got a manual, and it's just the herky jerk bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And we just spend the rest of the night just getting him checked in. They stitch up his forehead, and we're just sobering up in this fucking ER room where people are just like detoxing and bleeding and all that shit until it's dawn, and we just go back and sleep.
What happened with the girl?
Girl I tried talking to one more time, was like, hey, that was so crazy, blah, blah. I had a good time the other night, though.
Love the music, though.
Yeah, I love the music. And then she like immediately like friend zoned me and was like, I don't know if it was like that. And I'm like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. But I was like, for the better. This chick is out of her mind crazy.
Are you still in contact with the friend, the female comic?
No, it was not good times. She was not a good friend. I think she may have.
That's why you put the friend in the quotes.
Yeah, I think she may have quit drinking since then. It was just not a good.
Just waiting for that 9-step then, huh? Waiting for that immense.
Not a good dynamic. They're engaged now. They seem very happy. I'm glad for them. But he literally had to end up getting, because he's an actor, like plastic surgery to fix that.
Holy shit.
It was like a gnarly fucking scar.
I hope he made his little brother pay for it.
I fucking hope so too, man. You took an ass beating for no reason.
God, that's insane. So many fights, especially when booze get involved. It just happened. That's just what happens. Especially over men fighting over women. That's insanity.
And I'm so conflict averse, dude. I've seen a bunch of them. I've never been in one. I'm always like, I've never been punched, never been in a fight. I'm like, keep me out of it, dude.
Yeah, you don't need that. It's weird though, because sometimes I'll see comics on stage and they'll like talk shit to like the other comics, and I go, oh, you clearly have never been punched in the face, because where I come from, you talk like this, you get punched in the fucking face.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I wanted to ask you the last story we wanted to do, and it's perfect timing because we're coming up on the time. What you saved a life.
Yes, I saved a life with my dick. This is probably the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, not just drinking, but just in my life. So we went over to visit my buddy in London. I'm again with my roommate, the alcoholic.
Well, how old are you when this is happening?
22. I just started stand-up 6 months prior. This is in the summer. World Cup is happening, and we go over to visit my good buddy who I'm still friends with. I literally just got back from his wedding a couple weeks ago. Love him to pieces. Went to visit him because he was doing like this study abroad kind of thing with his grad school. So he was working in London for a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my uncle, since I graduated the year prior, was like, for your graduation gift, because he travels all the time for his job, he goes,
threw you off some of those miles, huh?
Threw me the miles. It was like, I'll fly you to London. And I was going to crash with my buddy who was living there. So I'm like, free flight, man. Free room and board. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking
If wedding
party.
crashes taught us anything, it's the miles are important.
Dude, the best. So we get there. It's the World Cup. And we've just
This is when it was in London, right?
I don't know where it was, but it was happening, and they give a shit there.
Oh, so, yeah, they give lots of shits.
In a way that I couldn't even understand. So literally, if you go to a country that cares, like especially one as diverse as London, every single bar will have like a different country affiliation. You can go to certain bars to like if you're repping Japan, if you're repping Brazil,
Damn.
if you're repping whatever. So you're literally everyone's bar crawling. It's just on all the TVs. Everybody's fucking drinking. It's just crazy. So like the craziest I've ever seen fans act, we watched with my buddies, coworkers, watched England play Germany. And it's the only time in my life when they scored a goal, the entire room of like 300 just threw their beers in the air and was doing that
my God.
shit. Like crazy people.
Yeah, they love it. They love it over there.
And these fuckers are doing this after work. They're still in suits and ties and women in dress. It's the craziest shit. But I'm 22, so I'm like, this country is the best, dude.
This is why we play the game.
Dude, Americans can't even party, dude. This is fucking partying, dude. So we're watching the USA-Portugal game, and USA wins. We're losing our minds. We're all dressed just absolute douchebags. I'm in like the thinnest American flag tank top. My douchebag former roommate has the California flag tied around him like a cape. And we're just drinking
No shirt on because
Steins.
he's jacked as fuck.
Yeah, and we're just drinking fucking Bud Lights, crushing them, just like, this is the best. And we start chatting up some girls, and we're like, oh, this is great. These chicks love to party. They're like, oh my God, da-da-da-da. We just went here. Oh my God, we're so hungover. We just hooked up with these guys, blah, blah. And we're immediately like, oh, these girls are a party. This is great. And we're like, we are going clubbing tomorrow. Y'all should come with us. It was these two girls. One was Asian and one of them was brunette. And they're like, oh my God, let's totally do it. So me and Alcoholic are like, great, let's pick out a club. Let's go. It'll be awesome. So we get all our shitty booze from the corner store, get our shitty playlist going, and invite the girls over. And we're like, dude, this is going to be awesome. They're showing up at like whatever, 9. We're going to pregame. So they show up, and there's 3 of them. And my friend, the alcoholic, had already hooked up with the brunette. So they were already making out. I hadn't like really done anything more than talk to the Asian girl who was at the bar. Yeah. So now one of their friends shows up. So I'm like, fuck, I'm totally friend zoned. This sucks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, this blows. Because my buddy already has his girl, and now I'm like, there's just these 2 other girls. It's never a good time when a girl invites her friend to a fucking thing.
Yeah, because then, that means something's going on.
So I'm like, fuck, whatever. I like dancing. Let's have a good time. So we're pre-gaming.
Like dancing, baby.
We're just ripping shots of Jack Daniels, and these girls are just out of their mind. They're talking about dropping acid, about snorting Vicodin. They're talking about how like they did like E. They've been just rolling E, and I was like, "How'd you get it?" They're like, "Oh, we just smuggled it in like our bottles of Ritalin. We took it on the plane." And I'd seen Locked Up Abroad. I was like, y'all weren't afraid to like, why didn't you just buy it in London? Because they were university students. They were studying abroad. These are Americans.
Yeah,
I forgot that critical part. So these are other Americans. So that's also how I knew. Like, I know this brand of piece of shit. These are girls I went to college with. Yeah, they like to party. So I was like, why did you risk like a felony instead of just buying it here? And they were like, I guess it just seemed easier this way. And I was like, this is fucking crazy.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Some people just don't get in any kind of they just don't understand consequences.
Just blessed life. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm just gonna get liquored up and dance because there'll be girls in this club. Who cares? So we get to this club, and it's one of those places that's just so grimy. There's a fucking chain link fence in there.
Oh God.
And we start drinking Red Bull vodkas, and before we finish the first one, the Asian girl just jumps on me and we start making out. So I'm like, yes, this is the best. This is the best. And her friend had just run off and was just dancing with different dudes.
Yeah.
My buddy's making out with the chick that he came with, and I'm like, this is the best. Dreams do come true. I love this. So we're just dancing, having the best time. The DJ's going off, and like 2 hours in, she's like, I want to go back to your place. So I'm like, this is miracles.
Hey, let's go.
Me too. Let's fucking go. So, and I think at this point, my buddy had already left with his girl. They'd already gone back to her place. So it had just been me and this Asian girl, and I was like, all right, let's go. And she went, but I don't want to leave without my friend. I was like, Oh, fuck. I was like, what do I... All right. So I just go up. We search the whole club. We're like looking. And I go up and I find her and she's talking to this dude, this Venezuelan guy who's just so high. He's like 6'3", like
God.
8-pack. He looks like a model.
Yeah.
I just joke about
That's
this.
a guy
Like,
when you see him, you're like, you're very handsome.
yeah, he looks like he fights Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
like this dude.
yeah.
And he's just been buying her tequila shots all night. And I'm like, I had to go up and tell this dude I'm taking the girl. Like, fuck. So I'm like, I go up and I go, hey, so we're heading out. And so-and-so really wants you to come with us. She's like, oh, but I'm having so much fun. Da, 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 da. I'm like, sorry, dude. Just give him your number. You guys can go out, have a great time tomorrow. Blah blah blah. Like, but she won't leave without you.
She wants to go, and we're fucking leaving.
And it's like she won't leave without you, and
Yeah.
she wants to go. So finally, like prime apart.
Was the dude pissed?
The dude, like, I mean, he's that dude. So he was like, when you're that hot, he's like,
Yeah,
what?
just turn around and be
He
like,
was
hey,
fucking
you.
fine. So he then goes, we get him apart, right? So then they get in the cab, and immediately the redhead starts crying. She's just bawling, like, I want to leave him. I don't want to. Blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, the Asian girl is just rubbing my leg, and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck is happening? And we're headed back to the Airbnb. I'm like, how the fuck? What am I supposed to do with this? I don't understand.
insane.
Like, how am I supposed to solve this problem? So we get to the street, and I'm just like, I'm fucked. I have no idea how to handle this. No idea. And then the Asian girl, God bless her to this day, just turns to her friend, and because the dude didn't know where we were, he like dropped us off at the end of the block, and she goes, do you want to streak the rest of the way? And she goes, sure. And they literally just take off their clothes and just run to my apartment. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm not going to question it.
But I'm in it. I'm
we
in.
Get back, do shots, end up having a threesome. Greatest night of my life. Absolutely phenomenal. So wake up the next morning. We're all so hungover. I kissed both of the girls goodbye and send them off to school. And I was like, didn't think this would happen for quite some time. Send them off to school. And then I'm like, what do you do when you celebrate? Go to McDonald's and get a fucking Egg McMuffin and hash browns.
Yeah,
So I'm
hell
just
yeah.
eating it hungover, just chugging coffee, feeling like the coolest dude who ever lived. And I get a Facebook message from the redhead, and she tells me, no, I get a Facebook message from the Asian girl, and she tells me that she was talking to the redhead, and she got a phone call from her dad. And her dad goes, were you at Club XOYO last night? And she goes, how the fuck did you know that? Like, why? And she goes, because, and this, I guess these are rich girls. She's like, well, because my friend's in the FBI, and he has you on CCTV, because London, it's all over the place. They've got cameras everywhere. Has you on CCTV talking to a guy who is wanted for drug smuggling and human trafficking.
Holy shit.
And that was the Venezuelan dude she was going to go home with.
Holy shit. You really did save a life.
I saved her life with that. I stopped the plot of Taken with the threesome. I'm a fucking hero.
Oh my God, dude.
I'm a
Bury
fucking
the
hero.
lead. You're a hero.
I'm a fucking hero. So that's why I would always end the bit of like, so ladies, if you're gonna go home with a guy, bring a friend, because you just might save her life. You just might save her life.
Oh my God, dude. That's a fantastic story to end on, man.
The hero.
You're a hero. You are a fucking American hero.
My dick should get the Medal of Honor.
Tell Vin Diesel to shove off. The
know.
next the Fast 11 is going to feature Avery.
Goddamn right, I'll be there.
Plug everything one more time. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, catch me on Instagram at Avery Comedy, and check out my podcast, Invade the Decade. Great show. Every episode we travel to a different month in history, and we run down the current events, the Billboard Hot 100, most watched TV show, most watched movie. We just have a beer, talk shit, and treat it like a time machine. So it'll be like August 1975, and we'll talk about Elton John, Dog Day Afternoon. Like,
That's
just,
awesome, dude.
Plane jacking. So much fun. Check it out. Invade the Decade.
Perfect, man. And thank you, everybody, so much for listening. At Brennan T. Comedy, of course, on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com. Get your Ex-Drinking Buddy merch. The one-man show will be out in January. Thank you again, Avery, for coming on, man. This was a ton of fun.
Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Of course, dude.